Ready to run? Take a deep breath and find your cushy place in the Brooks Ghost 15. Brooks' smooth, soft cushioning is lighter than ever thanks to DNA Loft V2 technology. So now you can float your way down the path to Runvana. Find your run at brooksrunning.com.
Hail Cheaters. Welcome to the Always Cheating Podcast. My name is Josh. I'm here with Brandon. Brandon, how are you?
I'm good, Josh. I am stuck in a double game week and I can't get out of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was that one of those songs that was added manually to our phone by Apple?
Stuck, yeah, that U2 song, Stuck in a Moment, and I can't get out of it. Yeah, just replace moment with double game week, and that is FPL this season. We're in the midst of double game week 36, and we are going to preview double game week 37. And we've waited all season for this, Josh. It feels like, to finally then get to game week 38 when
there's no doubles. Yeah. Well, it's I have to say, from a, not that anyone cares about this, so I won't go on about it very much, but from a content creation standpoint, I am sick of talking about like 3 or 4 teams each week, because this is it's sort of you get thrust into a little bit of a, and it's not that there aren't other teams to consider, but it's just the math of it, right? It's like, all things being equal, it's very hard to take the teams that play twice. Doesn't mean you don't have multiple options within those squads, and that's certainly what we're going to talk about today. Going into Game Week 37, you have Man United, Man City, Chelsea, and Brighton that all play twice. And your boy Ben Mendy, Brandon's back on the block. I assume you'd be looking to bring him in.
Not Ben Mendy. Yep. Ben Mendy is persona non grata in the Premier League.
Oh, yeah.
Edouard Mendy, yes.
Yeah, Edouard Mendy.
Yeah, and I think we all saw what Edouard Mendy has to offer Chelsea. It's nothing at all different from what Kepa does. Maybe a little worse.
Yeah. Maybe. It's hard. I don't even know why he made that change. Was Kepa bad at any point?
There is this. Apparently, there's this feud between, my limited understanding. Chelsea fans would correct me, but Lampard never preferred Kepa when he was first manager at the club, and everyone kind of assumed when Lampard was reappointed as caretaker manager that Kepa would just immediately be dropped, because that coincided with Mendy becoming fit again. And I guess this has just been a drawn-out exercise in Lampard giving Kepa enough rope to hang himself. Even though, like, the whole Chelsea team has been poor. We can just put this one right at the front of the podcast, Josh. We are not considering any Chelsea players for Game Week 37. Are you? Are you going Raheem Sterling this week?
No, of course I'm not. I was wondering if we should tease it out and pretend that we might to keep the listener. But I guess at this point, if you've gotten this far, this counts as a download. So you're right. There's no reason to keep people hanging around any longer. Thanks for listening. We will not be talking about Chelsea, and we'll see you next week with our Game Week 38 preview. Good luck this weekend. It's but whatever. We are here, and there are actually some things to talk about. I have 2 transfers. I might even burn points this week. I think that it's an interesting one. I as a preface, I will say, you and I were talking about this a little bit before the pod started. Game Week 37 tends to be a very unpredictable double in my recollection. You often get even a non-Queen's passing or COVID or whatever seasons, you would typically get a double Game Week in 37, because it's typically the one open window for the FA Cup postponements, and often, if teams are in the Champions League semifinals, there's typically at least one Premier League team that is. It tends to be the one weekend when they can play, and it's kind of like your last chance, because Game Week 37 will end on Thursday, and the season ends 3 days later. So you need to
get them in while you still can, for sure, because the season has to end on Championship Sunday. There's no way out of that.
There was that one year when Man United had to play like 2 days later. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that, honestly.
Yeah, it was like Chris Smalling had like a late own goal or something like that. I was just talking about this with somebody recently, and they were saying it was like they lost their championship on like their mini league championship on a Chris Smalling own goal. So it is, So anyway, let's not do what we did last week and do the entire pod before the pod starts.
Deal.
So
Okay.
we'll do a score check here on Gameweek 36. It's still early. I have 6 players left to play who've already played once, and then 3 players in tomorrow's match. And I am having it's kind of just I had a moment yesterday where I'm doubled up on the Man United defense as you are, the Newcastle defense as you are, and it doesn't go well. I don't get Callum Wilson. That didn't go well. He gets a brace. I was shocked that he got up to 50% ownership, or I guess effective ownership, right? Because the captainers and stuff, but it was still higher than I was expecting. I just thought it wouldn't be that high. Yep. I had no path to him outside of not going for Isak, and I think both of us felt pretty strongly that Isak was It's not that I didn't think he could play out left, but we only had 1 week where we saw the two of them even play together. It wasn't clear to me that Wilson was going to even start this game week, and so it was, I thought he might only start one of the two, and maybe he'd start the home match, and that's how they had been doing it, and so it was slightly unpredictable. And so, I went for Isak, and then Newcastle concede 2 goals, and then I go into this Man United match, and I don't have Luke Shaw. I don't have De Gea. I don't have
Bruno Fernandes. Maybe
I don't have Bruno. I don't have Bruno Fernandes. I don't have Harry Kane. I dropped Ollie Watkins. And suddenly I'm like, this game we could go really bad. Like this could get pear-shaped, Brandon, as the kids say.
I didn't have a single fantasy asset during that chunk of fixtures after Newcastle Leeds. That entire 5-game chunk, I had not it was all pure watch, and just watching the points just fall away, go bye-bye.
Yeah, I wish it had been a pure watch. I had Dominic Solanke come off the bench for me, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I could have gone with. I had what looked like a good bench on paper this week with Solanke and John Stones and Rico Henry, or Bronco Henry, as I like to call him, Brandon. A reference to that classic. Is it Jane Campion? The Power of the Dog. Did you ever see that movie?
That's right.
So
that's right. Great movie, in my opinion.
Okay.
Divisive movie.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but that's beside the point. I think the name Bronco Henry is interesting, and so that's why I'm.
That's the whole point.
Yeah, this is great. This is just good pod content. Can I just keep a coherent thought going for a second here? So anyway, so I guess I could have played Rico Henry. I don't know, but I didn't, and so Solanke comes on, and then Bournemouth proceed to. I think if you had walked up to Bournemouth and all the players, the manager, and said, "Go to that match," we're just going to call this a forfeit. We're going to call this a 2-0 loss. You don't have to get out there. You don't have to run around the pitch. You guys just lose this match, and then you can get on the bus and go back home. I think they would have taken it, because that I have never seen a team care less about the outcome than Bournemouth in that Palace match yesterday. It was the most indifferent performance, not necessarily the worst performance, but the most indifferent. They did not care about winning that match. I'm not sure they had a shot on target the entire game. It was a really terrible match. But of course I'm watching it because I'm a fantasy dork. And then Wolves were kind of in the same boat where they just didn't really. I guess they maybe had a couple of chances, but they didn't have anyone who can finish there. This is the ever since Raul Jimenez very sadly injured himself, they just had nobody who can score on that team.
Yeah, it's true. Diego Costa is. Yeah, that's been one of the sad narratives, is that Diego Costa has come back being so fun to watch as just like a wrestling heel. Also a great goal scorer when he was at Chelsea, and he's just had no material impact on the league, whether it's through goals or just the fun factor. You barely even know he's on the pitch, which is insane to me when you think about Diego Costa. Now, I do think Wolves at least have had some players who have managed to eke out decent seasons. Ruben Neves, I think, is the biggest one, and they've got some fun players like Podence and Totti. Yeah, sure. Our once friend Hugo Bueno.
Hugo, love me some Hugo. It's always fun to see Adama Traore pop in there for 20 minutes at the end of a match.
Now, this is a conversation we should save for preseason, because Lopetegui is already making noises to the leadership of Wolverhampton. Like, he needs to buy players this summer so they can actually make a push and they can evolve. So hopefully Wolves will just get better and get some more attacking talent, because I think they still remain a solid club for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So, but they don't score, and then Luke Shaw, even with the yellow card, finishes well into the 3 bonus points, and then even Kepa not starting was kind of a bummer, because a lot of people got Raya off the bench, kept a clean sheet in the West Ham match. So suddenly I go from 3,000 overall to 8,500. I almost triple my rank, and it's been a real sink or swim run-in for me here, and but it's okay. It didn't go well, and I have I have 3 Liverpool players tomorrow, and if Cody Gakpo can just score 7 goals, Brandon, I'm not even asking for much, right? I didn't ask for 10. 10 goals would be ridiculous.
Single
That'd
digits.
Be insane. I would never do that. Not to you, not to anyone listening to the pod. But 7, it seems fine to me. That seems like a reasonable thing to ask of a player. And so I want 7 goals. I do want 3 assists as well. That is the one thing I'll admit.
That's how you get your 10. Your 10 involvement.
Well, I want a total of 10. Yeah, exactly. And maybe a clean sheet point can count as an assist. Maybe
that makes sense. Yeah,
a little bit.
I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. Right now, I'm on 39 points. I used my 2 free transfers to go very chalk. I got in Isak for Watkins. And captained Isak, and then I brought in, who else did I bring in? McAllister for March. The 2 trapdoors that we fell through were the Estupiñán and Callum Wilson, who you mentioned earlier.
Forgot with the Estupiñán. That was a killer final goal. Killer.
What I thought after barely having any action on Saturday, my one leg up going into Sunday was Ivan Toney. Yeah, I had big ownership on him, and he's just mysteriously absent from the Brentford lineup and the bench. Turns out what we saw happen last weekend, where he was kind of holding his hamstring, turned out to be an actual hamstring strain, and minor, they say. But this was the last week that I was going to have Ivan Toney, and now I get 0 points for him, and the only person who I have able to come in for him is Kurt Zouma, who didn't play either. So I have nobody played any minutes on my bench. Rashford, Zouma, and Andreas Pereira. So that's bad. I have 10 guys who I fielded.
Wow, that's a tough. Yeah.
I have Trent and Salah to go, and then like you have triple Brighton and triple Newcastle. Lewis Dunk, I guess, would be the main differential I have, but it's a down week.
Thin gruel.
It really is.
Like to say.
It looks like I'll probably be bounced from both head-to-head playoffs in the quarterfinals. So that is kind of bumming me out. I mean, it's some good news if you're like, hey guys, come on, let's pick it up a little bit.
I think our energy. I think for you and I have a terrible game weeks. Our energy is not bad. I think that we're walking the line here.
I did have some good news. My friend Ederson Santana de Moraes finally came through with something.
He did it.
And he got 2 bonus points because this guy was a distribution machine against Everton. Not like a super great distribution machine, but he was just passing the ball a lot. So I finally get my 8 points from my premium keeper rotation. So that's all good. So
it's kind of interesting week. I mean, I guess outside of the Brighton Arsenal match, although even that maybe, but it was like this game week was like the script, right? It was like you expect Man City to beat Everton, probably keep a clean sheet. You expect Man United to handle sort of everything went. You expect a Frank Lampard team to concede 2 no matter who they're playing. These are all things that happened as we predicted. It's just the last few weeks we've seen Man United and Everton, or Man United and Man City in particular, concede a bunch of goals that maybe in a slightly different alternate universe don't happen. And so it was sort of I hadn't realized, I guess, until all the things that did happened, how much I've been banking on, on those outcomes not occurring. And so, and then John Stones didn't play at all. We'll hold off on the Man City talk because this podcast is going to be a pretty focused one. Basically, we're going to do 5 questions. Talk about Man City. We're going to talk about Man United. We'll talk about Brighton a little bit as well. I think there is some meat on that Brighton bone, Brandon. We already, I had Chelsea listed there too, but we'll lop that off per your request. Mm-hmm. Talk about captains, and obviously there's one mega captain option here, but there are people who are 30, 40 points behind, and they'll want to be considering some other options there. So we'll talk about captains as well. And then I want to do a quick on the beach ranking at the end of this week's pod, Brandon. Okay, I got in my dig on Bournemouth, but I got more digs in me. So let's see who's got something to play for and who doesn't, because you do not want to be caught short in these last couple.
We're going to roast the mid-table like it's an old Comedy Central special.
Yeah. Well, that's like the Solanke thing. If I just thought it through, maybe I set my team. Although I don't know. I mean, whatever. It's you never want to play the hindsight game too much. Yeah. It's not a way to play. So anyway, let's take a break though. I did want to quickly thank Bence, our newest Patreon supporter, Brandon. It's always nice when we that trickle of new Patreon supporters. It was a flow for a couple of weeks there. And we did our Patreon pledge drive. So it's not too late, and we will not be charging our Patreon supporters for the month of June, but you'll still get access to all of our to the Discord and any other stuff that we do over the summer. You and I have a couple of video projects we're working on. That's right. We got a couple camcorders, and we're going
to make
down
the pivot.
Yeah, we're going down to the skate park. Yeah, exactly. You've seen that movie mid-90s. That's me and Brandon. It's gonna be awesome. So you can go to patreon.com/alwayscheating to support the podcast. Brandon, anything I've missed here? Anything else?
No, you're all good, man. I think that's right. I'm looking forward to looking ahead to Gameweek 37 and opportunity for people to right the ship where the narrative doesn't feel like it's gone in your favor thus far in Game Week 36. But there's, it feels like a double game week where there's not too much more to the story because it's really just one extra fixture. So I don't want to beat that drum too hard of like, don't worry, your fortunes will change, because they probably won't. They're not going to change this week.
Well, the move was Callum Wilson. It turned out that was a baller move. Yeah. And there were a couple people in some of our mini leagues who made that move.
He is the truth, Joshua.
Well, he is the truth. I know it's. I can't even play the hindsight game there because there was just never it wasn't like, again, I don't want to rehash this too much, but there was just never a moment when I really seriously considered him over Isak. Maybe I should have more, but like I didn't, so I'm not gonna kick myself too much for that one.
It's all good, man. Let's take a break.
What happens. Yeah, let's see what happens on Thursday evening. Okay, let's keep the optimistic perspective here. So, all right, we'll take a break, get back, talk about Game Week 37.
Don't get boxed in by a whiteboarding app with limited functionality. Try Lucid, the visual collaboration platform that covers your team's entire spectrum of work. With Lucid, you can host virtual brainstorms and so much more. Diagram important processes, conduct cross-functional planning on an infinite visual canvas, power your workflows with data and intelligent automation, and bring your best ideas to life. Try Lucid for free at lucid.co/Spotify.
It's Mom's time to shine, and this Mother's Day, your gift from Blue Nile can help her shine even brighter. Blue Nile is the original online jeweler offering expert guidance alongside the ease and convenience of shopping online. From pearls to diamonds, earrings to lockets, each Blue Nile piece is made with high-quality craftsmanship for enduring style. So whether you're shopping for your mom or any other mom in your life, you can find a piece as classic as she is. Right now, get up to 50% off Mother's Day gifts at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jennifer Lopez is the mother, a deadly female assassin who must rescue her daughter from a syndicate group of dangerous men. Vengeance is a mother. Also starring Joseph Fiennes, Lucy Baez, Omari Hardwick, Paul Raci, and Gael Garcia Bernal. The Mother is rated R and now playing only on Netflix.
Few sports are more technically demanding than auto racing. Because of those standards, Williams Racing only trusts one brand of disposable batteries, Duracell. You may not think you need the same batteries that help power Williams Racing. Until you do.
Thanks, Mom.
Engineered for more. Duracell is a proud partner of Williams Racing. Learn more at Duracell.com.
Hi, Brian, we're back. Game week 37 kicks off on Saturday. We actually have something of an FPL classic, which I like, Brandon. We've got a nice, full, meaty slate of games on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, it wouldn't be a Premier League anymore without one inexplicably timed match. There's a West Ham game that starts at 8:30 our time, and then one 30 minutes later. Okay, sure. Then why not? And then you have Newcastle, Leicester. Leicester's getting all these Monday games. Good for them. And then Wednesday and Thursday we have the final double game weeks of the season. So I did want to kick things off though with a bit of an apology, Brandon, because I'm looking at the game week 37 here. And my apology is to Harold Danforth Canning, also known as Harry Kane, because I never should have let that guy go, Brandon. You know, he was so good for me for so many weeks, and I know he's expensive, but having that consistent 8 points, 7 points, I guess he got this week because he got a yellow card there, but getting that consistent 7 to 8 points every single week,
it's good.
Not a bad thing. It's solid. I could have used that at times this year, Brandon, when there was only, early on this season, he was great, and I let him go, and I still kind of regret it. So, Harry Kane, wherever you are, I'm sure you're listening. A shout out to you. I won't make that mistake again next season, except you're probably going to be priced somehow he's going to be priced higher than Haaland. He's going to come in at 14.5, and Haaland's going to come in at 12, and I'm going to be like, oh,
yeah,
God,
especially if he makes a move to a Champions League club.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that.
He'll get that bump too. It is remarkable looking at the stats page on FPL where you think Haaland is just running away with being the greatest fantasy asset in the history of forever. And there's Harry Kane, just 26 points behind him, which is not that far.
It's not that far. And yet his ownership is nothing. It's nobody's got this guy.
Haaland is owned by 83.3% of managers playing the game. Harry Kane, 29.1%. It's remarkable.
It's even lower in the top 10K too. And you just look back 7 points. I'm just going backwards from this game week, right? 7, 8, 8, 11, 6, 2, 9, 7, 6, 13, 2, 6, 5, 2, 8, 6, 5. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, all told, he has 27 goals and 8 assists this season. And I've captained him one time, it's absolutely insane just how remarkably consistent he's been all year.
Yeah, I guess to further the Kane Haaland comparison too, it's for Kane to be in this position at Spurs where when he scores, he gobbles up all the bonus because he's just surrounded by people who aren't accomplishing anything BPS worthy, where Haaland he's surrounded by 10 other players at City who can do the same, who can get out those FPL BPS. And that's just a huge win for Harry Kane as a fantasy asset.
It really is. And I mean, Haaland's pretty much in the same. I could do the number thing with him as well. He's been obviously great as 2. It's still incredible to look back and see 36 goals from Haaland. 36 goals on the season. I mean, he's got to be shooting for 40, right? With these
Definitely.
three game weeks left. So let's use that as an opportunity to talk about Man City. There are a couple. One question from a listener. One question that I added. So who do we want and who do we have? I guess is actually where I want to open with this. And then who do we want? And Amar B says, can we assume that Man City will have certain Premier League players and certain Champions League players now, particularly if they somehow go through the Champions League final? And then the question that I also had was, would you consider selling Salah to fund KDB? I mean, I guess in some ways, if your answer is that they are in two different tracks, then the answer would be no. But how do you factor in the Champions League when it comes to how you're... Actually, no, sorry. To start things off, who do you have for Man City? You have 2 players at the moment, right?
I have Ederson and Haaland, so I have 2. So the option is open to me to get a third ahead of this double. And I feel like a lot of this does hinge on City hosting Real Madrid on Wednesday, I think it is this week, for the return leg. I think we would know how to predict that lineup. Grealish, Stones, De Bruyne, Haaland. Basically what we saw who we saw play in Madrid. The rotation we kind of expected with Foden and Mahrez in the Premier League out wide. Mm-hmm. The reason why I am now focused on what happens Wednesday is I just don't think... I'm not sure that... Actually, I shouldn't be, because my point is I don't think it's going to impact the Premier League lineup going forward, because there's really only 2 more Champions League matches and only one relevant one for the Premier League schedule, because
the next one's in June.
It's and they will also then throw in the FA Cup final for Manchester City as well while you're at it, if you want to do that. But I think the run-in post Real Madrid for Manchester City doesn't really warrant that much rotation, unless, like, I think what we've seen with Kevin De Bruyne the last few weeks is that he's been nursing some match fitness, and he's been nursing whatever. I don't know. He's been trying to keep himself fit so he can play in Europe. And maybe that's the one question mark. But I would still be thinking, if I were to get a third, about players who would play in Europe, like Grealish. I mean, Foden has not looked good when he's played. I don't think he had a great game against Everton. Mahrez looked fine. Mahrez didn't play a minute against Real Madrid. I mean, maybe Mahrez continues to be the one that you might want to most seriously consider. And then, of course, there's Gundogan, who has now 4 goals in 2 matches.
Yeah. I mean, Gundo. Okay, so I agree with you. I think that I would not make any decisions about Man City players until after the Champions League second leg. And ideally, that match would not go into 30 minutes of extra time. That would be kind of optimal. The Arsenal match has really thrown a spanner in the works as well, because now I believe Man City can officially clinch the title this weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
If they win their match, they'll be 7 points ahead with 6. Arsenal only have 6 possible points available to them still this season, right? So it would be impossible for them to overtake them. And so that throws things off, I think, more than the Champions League part of it. The idea that they'll have won the title, right? So I think on this weekend, I guess they play on Sunday, right? So that Sunday match, they host Chelsea. I think it's the strongest possible 11 that he's got. So whoever you think his strongest 11 is, that's who he's going to play for the final home match of the season when they can clinch the title if they beat Chelsea. So, but then after that, they go away to Brighton and away to Brentford to close out the season. And I think it could be kind of everybody gets a turn season from there. And that Brighton match, I think, is going to be really tough from a fantasy perspective anyway, because Brighton really have a genuine chance of not even being in like Euro qualifying, right? But just like straight through to the Euro group stage. And so, I think for them, it's really, and they deserve it. They've been awesome this season. I really, I want them. I'm rooting for them. But so that's a tough match as well. But it won't really matter to Man City at that point. I mean, it's not like I don't see Pep as the kind of guy who's like, I don't care if we lose the final 2 matches. It's just not his style at all. But I do think that you could see a lot of rotation on those wing spots, right? With Grealish, as you're mentioning, Grealish, Foden, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva. He does not lack Alvarez. Alvarez can play on the wing, or he can play in that De Bruyne role. And so I think that we will see a lot of rotation among those spots. I also think defensively you could see that too, right? He's got 6 quality center backs, right? He rotates in and out. I mean, just to have a team that's so good that you can't play, like you just don't play an informed John Stones for 2 consecutive game weeks because you just don't need to. Is really kind of says it all with him. So I feel like that's kind of where so where I am right now is I've got Haaland like you, and then I've got John Stones, and I guess I'm just sticking with Stones. I mean, I'm not going to waste a transfer to drop him on the off chance that he doesn't play twice. I hope he plays twice, and I don't expect him to be quite honest. I think I'll hopefully get 1 out of him, and that's just sort of that was the gamble I took when I brought him in for the previous double for Man City, right? And it was just, it was fine. I got a clean sheet out. I got 8 points. Like, I'm not, disappointed with that exactly. And so for me, a lot of it hinges on, the Rashford question is a big part of this. I was hoping to talk about Man United and Man City separately, but a lot of what I end up doing seems to, kind of hinges on what I do with Marcus Rashford, because I don't, if he's not healthy enough to play this weekend, and this is a question I had for you, Brandon, which is, what would it take for you to drop Marcus Rashford this game week? Yeah. I mean, you and I both have 2. You only have 1 free transfer. I've got 2, but either way, if Rashford's injured, you're going to have to burn 4 probably. So what are you? What are your thoughts on Rashford at the moment? I know we don't have a lot of information.
I love this quote from Eric Ten Hag about the Marcus Rashford injury. It's like going into the office. Your boss asks you where you are on a particular project, and you clearly haven't done any work on this project. So Ten Hag says about Rashford's injury, he is not available. I hope he will be back soon, of course, and he will do everything he can to so that it can be done. The medical staff is hard working on it. That is exactly what I would say if they're like, yep, boss, we've got everybody working on it night and day. I'll update you when I update you. And
what I like to do when I'm lying about a project that I have not completed yet is I like to throw out a real concrete date. I'll be like, definitely still in progress. But I'm, my goal is to have that to you in at least a draft stage by Thursday. That's my goal, and that's what I plan to stick to. And then it sort of sounds like you're going to get them something for sure down the line, and that usually gets your boss off your back for a while.
I think the Rashford injury, for one, we didn't mention this at the start of the pod for Game Week 36. I had a benching headache. I was going to bench Tony. Turned out it didn't matter in the long run. I really wanted to play Tony, but I couldn't because Rashford, and then he got injured, and this freed up a spot for everybody. Yeah. And I think if Rashford is still injured going into Game Week 37, I think we drop him for sure, just given the upside and the double. But you feel like Manchester United's final fixture is home at Old Trafford after what could be considered, it's been a rebuilding season, but and it's had its ups and downs, but it is a success, assuming they hold their ground and remain in the Champions League positions. So that match, home Fulham, and if Marcus Rashford is fit, again, it feels like I want to keep him. So by that logic, it's sort of like I want to hold Rashford if there is a glimmer of hope. So this, as you rightly play this into the Manchester City discussion, because that's where you would bring in Grealish or Gundogan or however you want to play it. But I'm not sure with chip season kind of being over. I feel like there's not a big issue with throwing Rashford on your bench again for 37, just with the optimistic hope that he's fit for the final game week of the season. So I guess my point is, where you're not totally sold on a particular City asset for 37, I'm not particularly either. So what would we be getting if it weren't somebody completely different, like an Arsenal mid for that Forest match, some left field thing like that?
I'm kind of scared off of Arsenal right now at the moment, especially with Martinelli limping off, and I think they're just kind of done. And I don't. It's fine. Like they played Chelsea, they played Newcastle, they beat them both. It took a lot of energy. It's been a really difficult run to end the season for them. And it kind of feels like they're out of gas, right? I couldn't believe they couldn't create anything at home to Brighton. It was really very surprising. I thought. By the way, I was just checking as we were talking. So Gundo didn't. Oh, actually, no, he did. He played the full 90 in the first leg of that Real Madrid match. I was wondering if there might be a chance that he had been rested.
He and Haaland are the two notable attacking players who have just been playing every match. So then, you get into that Pep rotation mindset of, well, Gundo seems like he's the one who's due for the next rest, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that actually kind of like instantly removes Gundo from my consideration. I think Alvarez is a player that holds a little bit of appeal for me. But part of my problem with bringing in someone like Alvarez is Pep has these matches where he just doesn't make any subs, right? Where it's just like he kind of, most other managers are a lot more predictable when it comes to subs, right? You know, let's say you're not sure if Nketiah or I don't know, some random player is going to play, but you're like, I know that Arteta is always going to bring on him at some point, right, between the 65th minute and the 70th minute. It's actually interesting. I was listening to a Second Captains or something a couple days ago, and they were talking about how that's a tactical change that Arteta probably needs to make next season, which is to be a little more unpredictable with his starting 11. It was so stable, but at some point when it's that stable, it becomes very easy to plan for. The only thing that ever seemed to change was that left wing spot with a little bit of rotation there.
Yeah.
So yeah,
agreed.
So I think you're right about Rashford. I mean, it's, if we don't get any, I'd like to see at least a training ground pitch. I mean, because the problem is they play twice, right? And so it's a lot to miss out on. And I could use that money to go like take a punt on a Jack Grealish type player, right? Like, kind of just go, just try to do something a little bit different, maybe Foden. I don't know. Like, I don't really love any of my Man City options. Or you can kind of go the other way, which is Bournemouth are kind of, doesn't seem like they're taking the rest of the season very seriously. Maybe I just go with Bruno and Antony and just kind of wing it with a slightly different kind of squad. Or maybe I burn 4 and I bring in Shaw, Bruno, and Antony, which is another move that I would consider. I think actually really, even though they play Leicester at home, I think that Trippier to Shaw is not a bad move. I think it's a move that you could definitely consider.
I'm about to blow you away because here's what I'm thinking of doing. With Ivan Toney becomes Anthony Martial. Yeah, that's my plan move.
Okay. Well, it's to each his own. You know? How's that for You know how I feel about Anthony Martial. I don't have to repeat myself here or get in a dig or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean his starts are pretty sporadic. He's started 3 of the last 6, which is not amazing. But Weghorst has not been great. He looked pretty bad when he came on. He's looked worse than Martial. I can say that much at least. And now you get into shop window territory at this end of the season, where surely Manchester United want to be selling Anthony Martial this summer. So you play them so that other clubs can see what he's up to. At least with the double, I feel like you're guaranteed at least 1 start from Martial, and I think there are goals for Manchester United in both of these goals, away Bournemouth and home hosting Chelsea. So I think with an injured Toney, maybe he's back, but I don't love the next 2 fixtures for Brentford, which are Spurs and then City on the final day of the season. Gotta go. So I think here it's Alvarez and Martial. And Alvarez is the better player. He's a World Cup winner. He's playing on a possibly soon-to-be trouble-winning club. And Anthony Martial has just kind of been the butt of many jokes for many years in Manchester.
Half a decade now. Yeah.
But that's my style, Josh. I like to back the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
Back the butt.
Well, I mean, I'll give you credit for being different, and I don't mean that in a kind of backhanded compliment way. I think that maybe last week on the pod we didn't give Wilson, for example, enough credit, right? As a genuine alternative that should be considered, right? And so maybe Martial falls into that category. He did score a nice goal. Well, I mean, I don't know. He didn't really Antony created that goal, but Martial was in the right spot to score that goal. I guess Bruno kind of created the goal.
Martial knew to hold his run. That's as much as you can say about him.
Exactly. So Martial, but Antony has been playing better. I find him to be a very frustrating player to watch sometimes, but he does shoot. I don't know. It's sort of. I think he's an interesting option, and maybe he's even an option if you can't get there with Bruno. The player that we didn't talk about when we were in the Man City section was Kevin De Bruyne. A hard player to get to with regular transfers for most of us. But would you consider, to re-ask a question I asked before we got a little sidetracked, was would you consider Mo Salah for Kevin De Bruyne? Is that a move? Maybe not in your particular spot, given you've got a couple injuries, but like, let's say you had 2 free transfers. Is Salah to Kevin De Bruyne a move that you could consider?
No, I don't like it because of Liverpool's home form at Anfield, and that's important in 37 because it's their last home match, and Liverpool have to win out if they want to keep pushing for the top 4. Top 4 seems very unlikely, if not impossible, but they'll go for it. So last match at Anfield against Villa. Villa are strong, sure, but I feel compelled to hold Mo for that. And then you are rewarded for holding by a nice treat on the South Coast as Liverpool go to St. Mary's to play relegated Southampton on the final day of the season. So I'm just very happy to have and hold Salah for the remaining 2 game weeks.
Yeah, I'm kind of there too. I mean, honestly, the worry would be that Kevin De Bruyne maybe doesn't start both those matches in 37. Just there won't really be a reason to if he starts the first one and they clinch the title. Maybe then you give Alvarez more minutes. If I were in your spot, I would take Alvarez. I would just take the upside punt. Hope he starts at least once, gets minutes in the other one. Then I don't know, but then you got the 38 problem to deal with too. So it's tricky. It's not an easy week to make a forward swap. I think
here's another thing you could say about Alvarez on the negative side is he's been getting so many minutes recently because of De Bruyne just trying to maintain his fitness for the Real Madrid tie. If De Bruyne is fit, survives the Real Madrid match, I think he'd want to play for the few remaining matches in the Premier League. Haaland is definitely going to want to play because he wants to pad those stats. He wants to break a few more records. I could see other players getting rotated who are less consequential. So Cole Palmer can get minutes ahead of somebody like Mahrez maybe, but I don't think Alvarez is getting minutes over Haaland. So I feel like Alvarez becomes a bigger risk after the midweek match.
Yeah, they're also risky. And maybe the answer is you just can't have 2 Man City players. And that's just sort of how it's got to be. There's just no way to get there that really that you can feel secure. And especially, again, if they had to go into game week 38 and title was still on the line, that would be one thing. Even the second leg of 37, but the fact that they don't need any of that now. I mean, maybe Chelsea beats them on Sunday. We'll see, but more than likely, I mean, it's not going to happen, and so I don't know. It makes it very tricky to gamble. I think the one that I certainly he's been a blind spot for me over the years. Is Riyad Mahrez. And if Mahrez doesn't start the second leg of the Champions League match, I think he's maybe the safest option, and certainly got plenty of high upside. Yep. And he's arguably a better option than Bruno Fernandes. I think he's right there. And the Bruno thing is like, it feels like Bruno's been on the verge of having this like explosive, incredible match for Man United because he's shooting a lot and he's creating key passes and got a very late assist on Saturday, but it hasn't really happened for Bruno. I mean, it's not like we're not seeing Bruno from a couple years ago still, right? In terms of fantasy returns, he's been playing extremely well, but the fantasy returns haven't quite.
What's failed him is his shooting. His shooting has been awful, and I guess what you then remember is like at the end of The Sixth Sense, you just like flash back to all the goals Bruno had scored. Oh yeah, they all nail the underside of the crossbar or the post. Like the margin of difficulty. The fact that they all went in was maybe the miracle. What we're seeing is classic reversion to the mean with Bruno and his goal output.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, that is true. So. With all that said, to move on to Man United, I really like a lot of the options for Man United this game week. I think that I think that Shaw is an incredible option, arguably a better transfer option than again, I keep negging Bruno, even though he's the player I really want to bring in this game week. But I really like Shaw as a transfer option. I think if you can't get there with Shaw, then you could consider just going super cheap, getting Lindelof. He's going to be very safe. I have to admit, I did not realize Varane was this close to being back in the squad. That makes Shaw way more valuable in that team because he is going to own that left wing spot, for the rest of the season.
Totally, yeah. I think I want to take a -4 to get Shaw. If I do that, I'm either looking at getting him in for Trippier, or I'm looking at getting him in for Botman and benching Trippier. Or I play 4 across the back. What happens is if Marcus Rashford continues to be injured, then I bench him. But I don't know. This Newcastle defense is a real problem, Josh. It's a real habit that is difficult to break.
I mean, they play Leicester at home in 37. It's not a week where you're like dying to drop your defenders, right?
Yeah.
Or do it for a hit or something like that.
How many weeks, though, have we been saying, Trippier is just a week away from a 12-pointer? And you could say that again, and you can say, well, a Trippier at home to a diabolical Leicester team is maybe as good as a double for Shaw. That's not the world we live in right now, though, unfortunately. Yeah. It's significantly worse than a double for Shaw.
I had a thought, watching that Leeds draw, I was like, do they even practice like where these crosses go? Like it's like on the corner, it felt like it was just like everything they were doing, whether it was a free kick or a corner, was just like it's all just like send it into the mixer kind of stuff, right? I didn't feel like there was any plan ever, and it was, I'm like, was Trippier just like super lucky earlier on this season? Is that? I mean, because it used to be the joke was like he'd concede a goal and he wouldn't get a goal or an assist, and he'd still get 3 bonus. Like he was that involved in everything. And has it changed that radically?
He still is. I mean, you posted those match stats to the Hail Cheaters Twitter feed, and Trippier still led in chances created in that Leeds match. Yeah. He's still doing those things. I think you're right in that there's just not the end product from the rest of his teammates. Yeah.
So I don't see him as a player that I urgently want to drop, but I would only do it if it funded a move elsewhere in my spot, right? Like I don't think that Trippier to Shaw. I don't mind that. I don't mind that as a free transfer. Once you're in hit territory, I like it less. Yeah. But if it's for a hit, and that hit is because you can free up. I mean, what is Shaw's at 5.2? Trippier for me at least is at 6 million. So you'd free up 0.8. That's quite a lot, right? That's the difference between Gakpo and Mahrez or whatever, right? Like it makes a big difference in terms of who you can bring into your squad. So and he plays twice as opposed to once for Trippier. And Newcastle have been conceding a ton of goals recently. So I think you can make an argument there. How much is Mahrez? Mahrez is only 7.4. He's actually cheaper than I realized. Only 7.4.
So disrespectful to Mahrez.
It is poor Riyadh. I'm actually surprised he has fewer points than Phil Foden this season, which seems surprising to me. It feels like Foden's barely played. Although looking back, I guess he's gotten minutes in just the last 2, I guess, really. And then he had this long post World Cup run where he was just kind of out of the squad. All right, so Man United. I think. I mean, what do you think about Lindelof, Wan-Bissaka, all of the kind of Varane, I suppose, all of the defensive alternatives? Does anyone appeal to you among those?
I mean, I suppose it then gets back into the hit question. If you're doing anybody from Lindelof to Wan-Bissaka for free, sure, whatever. Like I do think Manchester United defense will pick up at least one clean sheet for the run-in. That's fine, but Shaw is 5.2 or 5.3. It's not that much farther to stretch, and this is just like pure fantasy logic. You've got to chase the guy with the highest upside, and maybe you think my mini league rival is going for Shaw, so I have to get somebody different. Well, in what is the scenario in which Shaw and Wan-Bissaka play the same number of minutes and Wan-Bissaka has more points than Shaw? Like, you're not going to differential your way through the Manchester United defense. He's really the only defender that's good for points beyond the standard meat and potatoes clean sheet.
I'm surprised Wan-Bissaka doesn't get more bonus just because he has these moments where he's so good defensively, right?
I agree.
It's like interceptions and stuff like that. But I'm with you. I think the only reason that you would do it is because Luke Shaw is 5.2 million and Lindelof is 4.1, right? So it was 1.1 million.
That's
so like if you
difference,
it's a huge difference. So if that money can, is going to be used to fund another double game week player or something like that, then obviously that's significantly more appealing. But yeah, and I think we were talking about Antony a little bit. I think everyone else has to just be ignored, right? Eriksen, Sancho, your boy Casemiro. I'm just not seeing anything in that. And anyone, all those midfield options. I'm just not seeing anybody. I do think that Antony is on a short term. This is the kind of thing. If we were talking in November, I would not be advocating for Antony, right? Because you can get stuck with these players, right? Whereas you're like, well, I'm just going to bring it in a transfer for sure. And then you have other problems in your squad, and suddenly you're 11 weeks in, and you're like, how do I still have Antony on my team?
Yeah.
But if you're going to bring him in just for the double, and then just to have Fulham at home for 38, who don't have a ton to play for, even though they've been playing well, I think that I don't mind him as much, right? Because you're just not committing yourself to him for very long.
Oh, yeah. And I was looking at pathways to Antony. Like, I've got Andreas Pereira doing nothing on my bench and trying to figure out, and I've got like 1.3 million in the bank. I was into it. I've been into it. I've toyed with the idea, and Erik ten Hag is committed to the cause. He refuses to accept that it was a mistake to transfer Antony to Manchester United.
He has his moments. I don't know. He's even getting some meaningful minutes out of Sancho. So Ten Hag is he's what a great hire.
I think he's pretty good. Yeah, I would agree with you on that one.
Yeah, it's like you trust that he's figuring things out, and I think that's what you really want in your manager. All right, so let's move on to Brighton and Chelsea. I know we're just going to ignore Chelsea, and I think rightly so. It's also they're also just unpredictable. Even if you wanted to consider them, it's like, okay, this week it's Sterling, right? Maybe next week it's some other random player in the squad. It's just very hard to tell who you'd even trust in that. And the defense is all banged up. It's just there's really no one to consider defensively. So, but Brighton, I mean, I think most of us listening are probably locked into 3 Brighton spots. I wish I had Estupiñán as well. At the moment, he was like the best player on the pitch. He was incredible. I thought Moises Caicedo was really good too, and he's classified as a midfielder in fantasy, and so he didn't really get a chance to shine in terms of like clean sheet and bonus points. But I thought he was terrific, and
I mean he typically plays in the central midfield for Brighton. It was just the way with Webster not playing, and the name escapes me. Veltman, exactly. So Caicedo, I think, was forced to move down to right back, and he played really, really well. He's like got a super engine.
Yeah, and I mean, just an amazing performance from Brighton. I mean, it was sort of from our own perspective. I mean, we all kind of knew the season was over. I mean, it was holding out a little bit of hope, but as I said to you in last week's pod, 2 nice wins over Chelsea and Newcastle, especially the win at St. James Park. I thought that they played really well in that, and that was kind of it. They showed that they're not giving in on the season, and maybe this was just one difficult match too many. And I felt like, and maybe losing Martinelli early really threw them off as well. That maybe just threw off their game plan a little bit.
No Martinelli, no Zinchenko to start, and
right.
Gabriel Jesus is such a weird player, and there, particularly early in the season, Jesus just looked like, wow, what a gift to this team. Where he's just like, just tell him to go out there and run his butt off, and it feels a little aimless at this stage, and I think it's because Arsenal are really the sum of their parts. And Odegaard Odegaard is
Saliba too.
Yeah. Him missing is like that's where you track the total drop off. Saka, where are we at with Saka? Because he has vanished, and everyone is
done.
there was a narrative where like this is he's the best English player right now, and he's still young and all this, but he's let the pressure get to him.
Or he's just exhausted. I mean, this is the big thing with Arteta. Arteta's like, you will always play 90 no matter what. But it's not like he's like Haaland where he gets to like hang out up front. It's like Saka's got to like track back. I mean, God, I thought Ben White got roasted a couple times today too. And he does.
And he gets bodied like Grealish does, Saka does.
Yeah,
so it's a very physical contest every match. That's fair enough.
Yeah, so I think he might just be kind of worn down because I think next year, I think he's going to come in at a big price, 9.5, 10 million, and we're all going to think that's too high for him. But then if Arsenal have a nice run of fixtures, I think a refreshed Saka could be awesome. At the start of next season. So I think he's just done this year. And Martinelli, maybe Trossard turns out to be the kind of the low ownership player that we consider for Game Week 38 if Martinelli is out for any extended period of time. That could be somebody. I mean, I'm kind of with you on Jesus. I don't know what you're getting with him at any given time, and this is I don't know. He's been great. It's like because Arsenal lost 3-0 today, it's so easy to like go. It reminds me, Brandon. I was talking to. Kate and I, my wife and I, watched the newest episode of Top Chef last night, and we were joking about how when they have the group that won, like the 2 or 3 chefs that were the best, and then they have the 2 or 3 that lost, and it's always so funny because they often make 4 or 5 courses, right? But when the chefs that won, it's like they were flawless. Nothing was bad. Everything was awesome. And then the 3 on the bottom, it's always like everything went wrong. It always feels like they kind of push the difference a little strongly there. Sure. Like I'm sure the ones that went wrong, it's like 3 or 4 things were pretty good. And I feel like that's how I am right now with Arsenal, where it's like I'm sure there were things that were reputable yesterday or in today's match, but all I can think about right now is the loss. And so I'm sort of viewing everybody through the lens of that. Yeah. So I can't say that I'm strongly considering any of their players, but I thought Brighton played really well. I thought McAllister was excellent, just didn't get the fantasy results. Almost got a nice little outside the box strike late in that match. And and then I think you and I both just got screwed not having Estupiñán, and that's just how it goes sometimes.
It really is. And we're talking about City and Manchester United assets. Of course, it's going to be the one that we don't name who will be the one. It's going to be Christian Eriksen, who just like miraculously comes through. That's often the way it goes. I will say, like
Rodri for Man City.
Oh my God,
Rodri and Eriksen.
Please let it be Rodri. My Anthony Martial punt seems like so much fun. I love how into it you are. Evan Ferguson is another player who one might consider for a blank spot up front. I mean, that boy is very large and very good. Yep.
That would be a thing you could consider too, I guess, would be like a Tony to Ferguson, and then McAllister or Matoma turns into somebody. Well, I don't know how much money that would free up for you, but that would be another possible move, possible minus
Indeed. Anything I can do to get Anthony. I'm going to either get Anthony Martial or I'm going to get Anthony.
Okay, someone whose name ends with T-O-N-Y.
Some Tony, any Tony.
Yeah, out for Tony, out for T-O-N-E-Y. You're dropping an E. That's what's happening this week. Yeah. All right, so captains. Been a little boring this season with Haaland. What can you do? He's got 36 goals. Seems like he's going to start forever. I don't really know, like endlessly, at least until he gets 40, I imagine. So if you just wanted to be different and you didn't really care if Haaland blew up and hurt you, who are maybe just give me like 2 other captain options that you could consider for Game Week 37? Just 2.
Yeah, if we knew he was fit, Marcus Rashford, I think, would be the next first pick that you would go for.
Sure. Yep.
apart from that, I don't know. I feel like the captaincy on Brighton players is kind of it's gone. I'm not that interested. I don't know. Bruno Fernandes?
That's what I was thinking. I think Bruno
Shaw
would be the other one.
Luke Shaw?
Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, probably. But I would go Bruno first. Just, I don't know. I've been burned captain defenders too many times. I think just because the problem with captain defenders is they can play great and they can still concede a goal that isn't their fault, right? Like that's the frustrating thing. Whereas if Bruno has a bad game, doesn't do anything all match, and then scores a goal late, then that's fine.
Points
right?
bonanza.
And he'll still get points. I think you could probably throw De Bruyne in there. I think he starts the Chelsea match for sure, and he probably starts the Brighton match just because I could see Pep in kind of like a mark of respect kind of way starting De Bruyne in that one too, just because I think he'll see that as a challenge, and Brighton, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that's one thing I do like about Pep. I mean, people get mad at him for rotating his squad so much, but I don't know what else he can do to a certain degree. He's got to play these guys and keep them happy. But I think, it's frustrating from a fantasy perspective. But he also is like such a sportsman when it comes to this kind of stuff, right? It's like he really takes the battle seriously.
He would be
really
into like dueling in the 19th century. Like, okay, so let's solve this squabble the only right way we know: sabers, cutlasses, and let's have it out.
Yeah. I really come to like Pep. I mean, this Man City team, I hate how many. I mean, not that I didn't like him before, I guess, but like, you know, it can get so frustrating. Like, I feel like when they were kind of dueling with Liverpool for, you know, those few years there, and he would get super tetchy, and you know, he hates to, like, you know, he's like a really poor loser, I feel like, but but I don't know, but there are. Why am I talking about Pep? Let's move on, Brandon. I want to end things though with on the beach, right? So we have to go through all. Actually, let's do it. Let's go 1 through 20.
Okay.
Do it fast though. This is lightning round. Okay, we're not going slow because some of these are going to be easy. Okay. On the beach, partially on the beach, on concrete. I don't know. What would you be if you're not on the beach? On the pitch? Is that where you are?
I don't know.
Where are you on the pitch?
In the office?
On the beach. Okay, we'll say in the office. The office being the pitch. Okay, so Man City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Man United, Liverpool, Brighton, they're all in the office. Okay? So we did the first 6, okay? Southampton are down. So I was going to try to go bottom and then kind of meet in the middle here, Brandon.
Gotcha.
So it's a very complicated way I'm doing this. But Southampton are officially relegated, so now they're kind of on the beach. The good article, by the way, about Southampton in The Athletic. I highly recommend it for anyone who's kind of interested in what happened with that squad this year. It's really interesting. They had this kind of analytics company that took over. Have you heard about any of this? It's kind of they bought. It's like they have a sort of. It was like they kind of were like, we're going to do a project. It was sort of this like interesting. Just sort of, but they ended up with this like stark division between the veterans and the new people they brought in, and it's like a blow. Apparently, only Chelsea had a larger squad. I didn't even know this about Southampton. Like only Chelsea had a larger squad this season, and so it created all this chaos. And then they cycled through 3 managers, and it was just, you know, they had the Notts County guy for a while, and so. Was it Luton Town? I can't remember where he came from.
He was from Luton.
He was Luton.
Yeah.
I don't know where
Jones.
Notts County from. Nathan Jones. Yeah. Your favorite. Your favorite to.
That guy
comedy
is
gold.
stunningly hilarious. And I hope to see him again soon.
But then, Leicester, Leeds, Everton, Forest, those are obviously teams that have a ton to play for as well, right? So I've just knocked off 11 teams here, Brandon. Spurs on the beach, in the office, or getting their beach bags together.
I mean, I don't think people even know what the work schedule is at that club. Like, is it my turn to take a vacation and you're in the office? There's not enough organization for them to be on the same page there. So
no,
it's sort of like none of the above.
You ever worked in an office where like the CEO left, or there was like a leadership gap for a while there? Yeah. That's where they are right now. They got this like friend of theirs who's managing a squad right now.
Oh, yeah. I remember having a substitute teacher in French class when I was in high school, and the sub teacher said, "We're watching Forrest Gump today." I don't speak any French in that movie, so Ryan Mason is probably just showing them Forrest Gump in training.
If you had been in a Chinese class, maybe that would have been okay, because he does, some diplomacy with China.
That's
there.
Fair.
All right, so they're on the beach. What about Villa?
Well, Villa are trying to push to automatic European qualification.
That's true. That's true. So they got something to play for. Brentford are probably they're 4 points back of Villa, Spurs, Brighton, that kind of group of Europa League, Conference League qualifiers. Do we think that Brentford? My feeling about Brentford is they're not necessarily on the beach, but the only thing that changes for them is that they do have a couple of. Let's see. They have one home match, and I think they're going to kind of be up for that game week 38 home match with Man City. I think that'll be a fun one. I just don't see them kind of showing up and rolling over for their home fans when they play Man City in 38.
Certainly not. And I think that's with a lot of these mid-table sides, the feeling is they're on the beach because they don't have anything to play for. Well. Yeah. What these clubs do is they show up and they've got faithful supporters in the stands who demand and deserve to have a show. The players and the staff want to give them that show. I never bought this idea that clubs like just roll over because they're quote on the beach. No, and I apply this to Fulham as well, who hosts Crystal Palace. It's a London derby. And Fulham have been safe for quite a while now. And they went down to Southampton and beat the crap out of them for fun. It's just because they could.
Yeah. I think that I think that's right. I think maybe there's a kind of you're right, and on the beach, it's obviously become like a bit of a overworked cliche, and I'm trying to kind of lean into that too. Obviously, it's a bit of a joke, but I think you have the teams that have really maybe the teams that were battling to avoid relegation, right? And they're sort of they're kind of through the line, and so it's more like it's like you've been tensed up for 3 months, right? And you kind of let the tension go slack, and those are maybe ones where it's hard to kind of have that same fire again because you've played, with so much danger for so long.
So I think that's fair. So then I think if you apply that logic to Brentford and again to Fulham, is that they've been playing without pressure and they're playing decent football, and I wouldn't expect that to change. So I feel like they're kind of still. Maybe they're working remotely. We could say.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I wouldn't consider them to be. I think those teams are still they're kind of going for. And also they have this kind of Vinicius thing now. Vinicius, do they? I think I've asked you this before. I'm just forgetting. Do they own him or is he an on loan player?
I feel like he's a loan player. Let me just double check.
Yeah. He's really playing well right now. I feel like Fulham would be well served to keep him if they can.
Yeah, and it's been ages since. I mean, any team's going to struggle to have a proper backup to a star striker, and then they've never had a proper stand-in for Mitrovic. So I agree with that. If they can keep him, they should.
Yeah, and Mitchell made a cool came on and scored a cool goal too, like a kind of like a headed kind of. Stooped header, whatever you call that kind of goal. That was
like a kind of almost like a diving header. Yeah, we Fulham owns Vinicius outright, so
good.
I think he's here to stay.
Good. All right. Well, they're 10th place. I also think finishing top half of the table probably means something to them too. So Chelsea, I think, are kind of a different kind of on the beach, which is you talk about like wanted to put on a show for your home fans. And with Chelsea, it's like, I mean, these guys don't even they've only been there like a month, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
they ain't my home fans, Todd.
Yeah, the players have played about 4 games at home so far this season, and so I'm not sure how much fire they're going to have these final 2
Remember
in
MASH how Klinger, he was, I think his name was Klinger, the guy who wore a dress, and he was breaking some sort of a dress code for the army in Korea because he wanted to get sent home because he did not want to be deployed to a foreign war. And I feel like we got a bunch of Klingers here at Chelsea where they're probably like, what do I have to do to get discharged from this service?
Yeah. Yeah, and we had an Enzo sighting yesterday. It's like I don't know. I don't want to go on about Chelsea. They've had enough digs on them. Their supporters have had enough digs this season. Palace, I think, they're ending on a high note, and so I won't say they're on the beach. I actually think Eze is one of the few non-doublers that I think they play is just double check this. I think that they play. Forest at home in game week 38. And I think that Eze could be a fun game week 38 transfer if you're kind of like the way the rest of my team sets up, and maybe, you're like, okay, I don't really have a lot of money, and so maybe like a McAllister to Eze move might be like a fun 38, just kind of planting the seed there, because I think he has 3 matches with double-digit returns in his last 10. So he's got a lot of upside if you're looking for somebody who's kind of cheap with some upside down.
Yeah, that performance against Bournemouth was outrageous. Now, I didn't watch all that match, but I'm getting the sense from you that Bournemouth were totally checked out, taking that into account. But there's something about Eze that is just it's beautiful. It's so effortless. He's like the chief cool player in the Premier League right now.
Yeah. He's on double-digit goals for the season, and I feel like it's sort of they've kind of gone a little under the radar. I think. I think Elise has gotten some attention, and I'm kind of excited. I don't know what's going to happen with this squad next year. I don't know if they stick with Hodgson. I know he's kind of like in the caretaker role, but he is a good manager. I don't know. It's like I don't know what to say. Like,
whatever magic gold dust he's got, it's working for them for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I think we talked about Bournemouth already. Wolves, I think we actually talked about them a little bit too. I mean, they're pretty checked out. They're safe, and there's not a lot to play for. Maybe they set up a little bit more for next season, which actually, in some ways, even though that's not effectively on the beach, means like they can kind of tinker with the squad a little bit just to see what.
It almost makes them targetable because you think of managers, and like I was saying earlier, like Lopetegui is already in the press saying like we need to buy some new players. Sometimes managers want to show the weaknesses of their squad to force the owner's hand to spend some money. So, maybe the tank is going to happen here.
That's true. They play Arsenal at home at 38, so maybe that's the... I guess that's the big pressures off match for Arsenal too, right? Because they're 15 clear of Newcastle. Like
they've got a lock
absolutely
on second.
No chance of exactly. They got a lock on second. So I think game week 38 might be like, you know what? Like I actually thought the fans were pretty supportive, given that they were really getting their butts kicked by Brighton in the match today.
Yeah, but a player like Emile Smith-Rowe, who is a fan favorite, like maybe he gets a start come game week 38.
Right, that's true. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Especially there's some Martinelli problems. All right, final team, West Ham. I think they're in that they're in that category of on the beach in the Premier League because they have
bigger fish to fry.
Europe. Yeah, exactly. I'm rooting for them. That'd be cool. I hope they win the Europa Conference.
Yeah, and they missed out on the Europa League final last season. They lost in the semifinal, if I remember correctly. They've got their return leg for AZ Alkmaar. They play away. And they're up 2-1, so that's all to play for. And I assume that's why my main man, my boy Kurt Zuma, was on the bench this week. Don't risk him. Don't throw him too far.
I mean, yeah, exactly. No, yeah, exactly. Don't do it. So, I'm not going to even touch your cat joke there, Brandon. All right, well, that's your pod for this week. Good luck to everybody in Game Week 37. We'll have another pod on Thursday evening after this will be for our Patreon supporters after the Newcastle Brighton matches over, which should be a very interesting game. And if you want to listen to that podcast, you can support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/alwayscheating. We do a bonus podcast each week during the season. We'll also be talking to Slack, taking questions, and just generally gabbing on there, bemoaning our rotten head-to-head luck, Brandon. Both of us, I think you and I are both sinking like a stone this week. But that's right. All right. That happens.
It's cool. And it's always next season.
Yeah, it's cool. Exactly. So Brendan, do you want to thank our producer patrons?
Yeah, big thanks to producers Mike DePietro, Trevor Ingerson, our buddy Chris Howell, Babas Kuhn, James Holland, Dave Wegner, Lodahl, Nick Wright, Lazarus Janos, Jesse Halstead, Bruce Kerr, Brian Chin, Blair Jacobson, Todd Byerly, Andy Portlock, Dan Parsons at FPL Merch, Kerry Swanson, Jefferson Turner, Buffalo Wildmings, Francis Moore, Sam Shower, Caleb Robbie, Vulgar Paulson Kruger, Alex Holcomb, James Keatley, The Saint, Bob Fox, Craig Jackson, Thomas Andre, Shalin F. Kadakia, Terrence O'Donnell, Paul Hertzig, Heath Cram, Thomas Tislov, Noah Louise, and Travis Grant. Rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks to everyone who's recently given us 5 stars on Spotify. Hey, if you're listening on Spotify right now, it's very easy to just rate the pod. Give us 5 stars. We'd appreciate it. It's been a long season. Follow us wherever you get social media. All this information and more is at alwayscheating.com. Josh, let's hope. What do we want to happen? Besides Cody Gakpo having 10 goal involvements tomorrow, what's the next thing we want to have happen?
Well, I think the other things I want to happen are negative things. Schadenfreude, players not starting who you'd expect to start and stuff like that. So I feel like I don't want to speak that into existence. Like if we get an Isak goal on Thursday, that would be
I want an Isak goal, and I want 10 goal involvements from Lewis Dunk. That's what I'm looking for.
Ooh, wow. You don't mean he doesn't have to assist or score, right? You just want him to be involved in like
the celebration,
the celebration. Yeah, exactly.
And may they not be own goals. That's the bigger stipulation.
10 positive. You really got to watch the monkey's paw situation that you just created there. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.